Discover how to start and build a successful luxury business in today's session with Elizabeth Solaru. Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu. Mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services. Elizabeth is a multi-award winning luxury business consultant, author, and world-renowned cake artist. As the CEO and founder of the Diversity in Luxury Awards, she's a pioneering voice advocating for inclusivity and representation in the luxury sector. Now, the first question is, when someone is just starting out, what are the first key steps to take when building a luxury business, especially if they don't have connections or significant capital?
That is an amazing question, because you've literally just described me. When I started, I had no connections and I had no capital. I had a secondhand mixer and £40 in the bank. So I've learned through trial and error. But if I was starting out today, the first thing I would do is learn about myself. So as a founder in the luxury space, you have got to put some of your DNA into your luxury brand. And in order to be able to do that, you need to know yourself. So for example, according to the archetypes that I created in my book, The Luxpreneur, I'm actually an artisan. And what does that mean? It means that all I care about is creating cakes, making cakes. I'm paying no attention to the money. I'm paying no attention to the business. And that means I'm going to overspend on ingredients. I'm not going to promote things or charge what I think I should be charging. So that means I need to have an accountant that is very, very hot on the money. I need a business manager, and I also need somebody who is willing to work with a creative like myself, because creatives are not easy to work with. Artisans are not easy to work with because we're always chasing perfection. So those are some of the things that I would say you need to do first before you even start your business. Then the second thing I would say you need to do is you need to have an understanding of your particular sector. You need to understand who the best people are in your sector, who the top players are, what they do, how they do it, and you need to watch them. Now, people think you need to imitate them. Not necessarily. You don't need to imitate them, but you need to watch what they're doing, and you need to find what's unique to them. That way, you're able to say, this is what's unique to me, and then you can double down on what's unique to you. The third thing that I would suggest is that there are 5 pillars of a luxury business. And I named the 5 pillars in my book, The Luxpreneur. One pillar that, if you imagine a table with 4 legs and there's a central pillar, the one pillar that runs through is the storytelling. You need to be able to craft an amazing story around your product or around your brand, because the storytelling is what drives the emotional pull. And this is where people will overlook the fact that what you are selling is actually pretty expensive. Because at the end of the day, if you look at what I do, it's eggs, butter, sugar, flour, milk. That's what I'm selling. But what people are buying from me is completely different to what I'm selling. So those are quickly just some of the 3 things that I would suggest people do in starting a business.
Thank you. When it comes to selling a luxury product or service that is very expensive, what are some of the tips and strategies you can give around that? And the reason I ask is because I'm surrounded by really wealthy entrepreneurs. And there's a difference between that and actually having those people give you money. So Please share some of your tips in terms of how do you get your product or service to be so irresistible that wealthy entrepreneurs are not just keen, but they are thinking about your product or your service as the number one thing in their priority list?
Okay, that's again another great question. So I'm just going to do a quick run through. This is a big question, so it's as long as a piece of string. But let's start with, I normally start with a client, but I'm going to start with a product. People believe that luxury products need to be excellent or perfect. No, your product just needs to be good. It needs to be good. Then you need to craft a narrative around your product. So you need to have narratives around exclusivity. People love exclusivity. If you want something to be exclusive, just put a red rope around it. If you put a red rope and you don't let people into a door, what do you think happens? People want to come into the door. So exclusivity, make it rare. So I use an example of peanut butter. So imagine you go to your normal supermarket, you get your favorite brand of peanut butter, and you're happy. If you go there the following day and the peanut butter is not there, you might buy another brand. It's no big deal. But imagine the same peanut butter. I put it in a very exclusive location. So I position it. One of the top stores in the UK is Harrods. So I take the same peanut butter and I put it in Harrods. And then I create a story around it. I say the peanuts that made this peanut butter are harvested only in the morning before the sun rises, and it's harvested by hand. And the processing is done by hand, gentle. And then I begin to weave a narrative. And then I talk about the fact that the farmers are paid really, really well. The soil is nourished by the water that flows from the river. People then begin to feel an emotional resonance. And then all of a sudden, this peanut butter that you could probably get in a supermarket becomes something extraordinary special. Then if I work on the packaging and I make the packaging extraordinary, again, I'm adding value. And then if I go further and I say, by the way, we only make 10 jars of this peanut butter a year, and there's a waiting list. What do you think would happen? People are going to jump on the waiting list. So this is how you sell a luxury product. Now, that's the product. When it comes to the other side of selling, you're selling to clients. So what I've done is I've broken down luxury clients into 8 different types. So depending on the type is how you sell a product. So the same jar of peanut butter to a particular group of people, they're looking for reliability. They're looking for security. Another group of people are looking for the fact that it's the most expensive peanut butter in the world, and they have bragging rights. So when visitors come to see them and they say, oh my God, I've just bought this jar of peanut butter and it's the only one in the world or whatever, then you've got another group of clients who are probably aspirational. And if you say to them, this jar of peanut butter has been bought by a celebrity, has been bought by royalty, they want to buy into that as well. So this is how you sell. So you look at the product and then you look at your clients as well.
Thank you. How do you overcome objections in terms of price when you are trying to sell a high ticket program or high ticket product?
Okay, that again, another great question. I don't believe in overcoming objections because it's not a battle of wheels. So if you're trying to sell something and you're meeting with resistance, when it comes to luxury, the way salespeople are trained, you meet resistance, you push back. So it becomes a push and pull. No. I would say if somebody pushes back in luxury, you actually withdraw. You do the very opposite. You withdraw and you make them feel it's their loss because you know the value of what you're trying to provide. They've seen the value of what you're trying to provide. And then you may need to go to the drawing board and think if they're objecting and if the objections are around money in particular, it means you're not hitting value yet. You are not hitting the value metric. There's an equation I give in my book for what value represents in luxury, and I break it down into the component parts. So if you're not hitting, if something is missing from that value formula, then you're not hitting something. Because remember, it's about desirability. You need to move your clients from, I can't afford that, into how can I afford that? What must I do to get my hands on this? Because think about it. If people are putting their name on a waiting list to spend 100 grand on a handbag, you can sell a high ticket program. And sometimes when we are selling based on, and it's got this and it's got that. We are not selling on the outcome, or we're not emphasizing the pain point enough. So if somebody's constantly making losses and they want to make a profit, you telling them to spend more money doesn't make sense logically. But if you then say, okay, this is the cost of you not buying this program, 10 more years of losses, and this is the value of you buying the program. So my point is, do not push back, withdraw, and then emphasize the value and be prepared to walk away. Because the moment you try to walk away is when people run after you.
Thank you. What are the 8 types of entrepreneurs that are buying high ticket products or services and or programs? And how can an entrepreneur appeal to their needs, desires, wants, and what kind of psychological triggers can they use in order to make sure that that product or service becomes irresistible?
Okay, so that is a very big, it's actually about a third of my book. So I can't do a detailed, but I'll give you 2 examples. And I like using real life examples. So, King Charles, our current king in the UK, okay? And Ozzy Osbourne, the rocker. Okay, so they're both high profile. They're both white males, high profile. They were born in the same year, within a month of each other. They've both been married twice. They've both been divorced twice, and they both live in a castle. If you go by data will tell you they're probably the same, but we know they're not. King Charles is what I would call a comfort first type, or a security conscious, comfort type luxury client. Ozzy Osbourne is what I would call an innovator and trendsetter type client, because he's been rumored to do things with bats on stage. On paper, they are wildly apart, but they both buy clothes, they both buy shoes, etc., etc. So if I were to sell that same jar of peanut butter to both of them, with King Charles, I will emphasize safety. I would emphasize the fact that the brand that is selling the peanut butter is a heritage brand. It's been in existence for 100 years. The methodologies are safe. That's what I'll emphasize. To somebody like Ozzy Osbourne, I will emphasize the fact that maybe the jar that it comes in, there's a different way of opening the jar. It's something new, it's something different, etc., etc. So you need to be able to, when you're selling high ticket programs, you cannot do a one size fits all. You need to look at the person in front of you. And this is one thing I did when I was selling high-end cakes. From the very moment they're talking to you and you're having a conversation, even if it's about the weather, you are sussing them out, they're sussing you out. And from their own words, you're able to determine, okay, are they about this or are they about that? Once you know the type they are, then you sell whatever it is that you have. I never led with, oh, it's going to be the best cake in the world, or it's going to be the most great tasting cake. I never led with that. I would always lead with whatever was important to them. So to some people, it was the look of it. I would emphasize the look. In my book, I call such people aesthetes. So they're all about the look. But there's a lot more to them than just superficiality. I would lead with that. To somebody who is what I would call only the best, I would boast, because such people want you to boast to justify their decision. So I would talk about testimonials. I would talk about all my social proof, stamp of approval, the fact that The cakes were flown out, the king of this and that. That's what I would, to such people. But if I boasted to somebody like King Charles, that conversation will be shut down in 2 minutes because they want you to be discreet. They don't want you to be boasting all over the place. So to somebody like King Charles, I'll be talking about NDAs. I'll be talking about confidentiality agreements to put his mind at ease. So that to me, in a very short, brief answer to how you sell to the different types of luxury clients. But there's a lot more detail of psychological levers, et cetera, in the book.
Wow, I loved what you said. One important question is, what kind of client, a luxury client, do you have in front of you? And what questions can you ask in order to determine the type of luxury client you have in front of you?
Again, another brilliant question. But let me go back a little bit. Before I set up my business, I was a headhunter. And before I was a headhunter, I was a scientist. So I then became a headhunter, and I've interviewed thousands of very senior leaders, very well accomplished leaders. So to me, though that skill, I took it into my business. And what tends to happen is it's not even asking the questions. It happens way before you ask the questions. So they sit down in front of you or you sit down in front of them. I look for things like body language. I look at things like where they are sitting in the room, where they are facing. So for example, somebody who's an aesthete would probably choose the best looking chair. A comfort first will choose a very comfortable, squishy sofa in the room. So again, the venue that I select and I use, I have an instinct for selecting the right venue for the right potential client, because way before then, we've sent emails back and forth, either dealing with their staff or I'm dealing with them directly. So even the type of staff that I'm dealing with will give me an indication. So if I'm dealing with the family office, for example, that tells me a lot about the client. If I'm dealing with a PA, that tells me something about the client. So it starts way before they even sit in front of you. And the questions that you ask, I never ask intrusive questions. I might ask innocuous questions. So even questions about the weather, for example. Oh, so how was your journey? How was your flight? How was your travel? Some people would be fine. Some people would give you in detail. Some people will tell you about something they saw. So that gives you an indication. And then you adjust your questions accordingly. I never ask, again, talking about what I'm selling, the actual product, that comes last, because I'm asking questions around, I'm asking questions about other things. So what have you done so far? How are the preparations going? So from that's when I then position what I do in the middle of that. And I think a lot of salespeople are trained to ask questions around, say, for example, if they're a car salesman, have you bought this before? Have you done? No. You want to know about their lifestyle first, and then bring in whatever you're selling to suit the lifestyle. So that's how I approach that.
Thank you. How do you make sure that you reach the 8 types of luxury clients in your luxury brand messaging, for example, on your website or in the program's brochures or whatever it is?
Okay, so you can't always appeal to everybody all of the time. I tend to advise the people I'm coaching to niche down. So yes, luxury could be a niche, but you then niche down. So for example, there are certain luxury client types that are not my natural fit. Having said that, I get the most learning from them because we're not natural fits. They actually drive some of the changes and innovations that in my business, because they make me think differently. And sometimes, when you think, oh my God, that's a difficult client, is because you're not a natural fit. I know who my natural fits are. So my natural fits are 2 types, maybe even 3. And I know what they love to see on the website. So initially, I don't put a lot, there's no overselling, a little text. I don't put a lot of text because I'm lucky that I have a product that photographs beautifully. But even if you have a product that photographs beautifully, the type of photography is also very, very important. So if you take a jewelry brand like Tiffany, for example, versus Cartier, already you have images of what the photography looks like. So you then need to say, okay, this is a type of photography and font and whatever that I love for my website. This is what I'm going to have. And that will self-select. Then you move on to the next step, which is, what do you want people to do when they land on your website? Where do you want them to go? And many of us, we build the website, but we don't build it with a client journey in mind. So if you have a particular type of client, some types, for example, the comfort firsts, they don't want to click on too many links. They just want to click the one time and get the information and get out. So you need to design your website that way. In other words, you're guiding them and you're saying, okay, click on this and blah, blah, blah. Some clients, for example, the aspirationals, they love looking at amazing images because dreaming and dreaming and dreaming is part of their natural inclination. So if you want them to spend very long on your website, you need to, populate the website with many aspirational dream-like images. So this is why I would say try as much as possible to niche down, because the really big brands, they do it really, really well, where they appeal to all 8 types nicely. But for that, they use pricing as a guide. So level 1 pricing is your lipsticks, your perfumes, very small accessories, beauty products. Level 2, you may have to save up for a year. And level 2 are the handbags, the shoes, the jackets, the off-the-pair clothing. Then you've got level 3, which is couture. But as a small business in luxury, you're not able to do all 3. So you might need to decide, okay, I'm going to go for level 1 and then stick to that and do that really, really well. And the level 1 is where you'll find your aspirationals, because they're buying the lipsticks, the perfumes, etc., etc. So you need to do that really, really well. And then if you're level 2, do that as well.
Thank you. So do you suggest that one business should stick to a brand archetype and follow that particular messaging and everything like that, and not aim to appeal to the 8 brand archetypes?
Absolutely. Because, they say jack of all trades, master of none. If you have the resources, you can appeal to all 8. The big luxury brands do. However, my suggestion is you can niche down and try 1 or 2 first. And then as you're growing and you're getting better at your messaging, you can then take it up a notch and then try to add other archetypes as well. So yes, absolutely. Niche down. And even when you niche down, you can even niche within a niche. This is what some brands like Lamborghini, Porsche, they do that, or Bugatti. How many people can afford to buy a $5 million car? But they do it really, really well. They niche down. And even within that niche, they niche down as well. And some watch brands, they do that as well.
Thank you. Give us an example of how you used the brand archetypes for your business, and what kind of luxury clients do you mostly tend to appeal to? Of course, you are going to accept everyone who wants to buy a cake or who wants to buy a luxury program, but what kind of luxury clients tend to be attracted most to your brand? And what is the messaging, the images that tend to prevail on your website that seems to attract them?
Okay, that's an excellent question, because we're now getting to specifics. So for me, I was very, very lucky that one of and again, this was just a random phone call. And I was doing what I was trained to do as a headhunter, which was making cold calls. I took the yellow pages. And then after maybe 100 calls, I finally got to speak with somebody in the offices of Lady Elizabeth Anson, who happened to be the cousin to the late Queen Elizabeth. So she was my first, I would say, proper, really high-end luxury client. So I learned a lot from that association. So the first thing I learned was discretion. Even though no NDAs were signed, I never ever showed anything that I did. So for somebody like her, the images that attracted them the most were the lifestyle images. There are two or three sorts of images that you use in luxury branding. The first one are the product images. So you've got your product on a plain white background, but they have to be photographed in a certain way. We can all do that, but there are certain photographers that I feel every business should bear in mind is worth spending that extra to get those images. So you've got your product images, and those appeal to magazines, etc. So you need to make sure those products, you get them into the very high-end magazines. Then you've got your lifestyle images. The lifestyle images, you have to do a mock of your product in a certain type of environment. And it has to be the type of environment where these high-end clients can easily see themselves. So when you're then creating the environment, you then say to yourself, do I want to attract the comfort first? Do I want to attract only the best? Do I want to attract aesthetes, innovators, etc.? So you then create that environment and you place your product in the middle of that environment. And the angles from which it is photographed, very, very important. After a while, you then develop an eye. So I did that with my products. And then what I did, I would post those images on social media. And then I don't just go by likes, I go by the quality of engagement. So the type of engagement, so the caliber of people commenting. And if I'm getting approached by certain tastemakers and they're saying, can I use this image in my mood board? Or I'm being approached by an editor, that means I've got the photography right and I've got the setup right. So that's what I did over the years. And then eventually I started organizing my own brand shoots, my own style shoots, as we call them. And then photographers, I would only work with certain photographers because not every photographer has the eye. So you need to do things like that, especially if you are a product-based service. Now, a product-based or a company. But if you are service-based, some people say, oh my God, but I've only got, but what you then need to do is look at the type of people you want to buy your services and then get the images. If you can, try not to use stock images, if you can, but I would say create the lifestyle of the service that you're trying to sell. So images are absolutely crucial. I dedicate a whole chapter to how to get your imaging right in the book.
Thank you. When you find that thousands of multimillionaire luxury clients come to you and are attracted to your brand, how do you go from there to actually closing, hundreds of deals with these clients?
Yeah. Closing now, the art of the close, that is, again, I find that many people that I coach, they overtalk. Some people need the space to think. If they're coming to you, if you're getting time in their diary, they're motivated. That means the interest is there to buy. What is going to tip them over the edge is whether they like you and also whether they consider you to be a high trustworthy individual. So if they're sensing that you are not trustworthy for them, I would say, again, I always say this, I would say withdraw. For some people, they just need a bit more proof. This is where you can reference very discreetly. You can say to them, these are people we've worked with. These are our references. You can call them and ask them yourself. And also, when you are talking with them, some people do not want you to name drop, because if you're name dropping other people to them, they're thinking she's going to name drop other people, me to other people, if she's name drop you, so you're going to name drop me to other people. So for some people, you just need to be careful in terms of, you can name drop, but you can say, you don't have to name names. You can say a certain family or a private family, or you can say a certain contemporary of yours. Again, you don't have to mention the names, but you can reference, and they can easily work out who it is. And we need to remember that these people talk to each other. And another thing that demonstrates your high trustworthiness is if something goes wrong, do not lie, do not sugarcoat. and let them know there's a possibility. So for example, if I deliver cakes all over the world, so I will let them know there is a possibility that something could go disastrously wrong. However, these are the steps I put in place to mitigate. So some of them, they want to see my risk assessment. So some of them, I've actually said, I've assessed every risk from the cake not even arriving to the cake collapsing, just to put you at ease. So some people want to see that, but some people don't want to see that. So again, it really depends on the type of client. So you need to demonstrate your trustworthiness and don't shy away from things going wrong. If they've gone wrong, say, this has gone wrong, but this is what we're going to do to fix it. So yeah, so that, those are some of the things that I've personally done to close the deal.
Thank you. How important is it to have a strong personal brand in order to close high ticket programs and products and services?
Another great question. Some people, when it comes to personal brand, it's about, they want that proof. They want that seal of approval. They want to know that you are highly regarded. Now, this is what happens. Some people have a great personal brand, a great profile, and they sell high ticket programs, but the programs are not effective. They're not great. And that is really, and because of that, they don't have a great reputation in the market, if the truth be told. Whereas you have some people, they don't have a very high, or well-known personal brand, and yet they've got amazing programs. So the way I navigate around that is to say to some people, I'm probably the luxury industry's best kept secret, or we've done such and such and such programs, we've done such and such events, send them the videos and let people check it out themselves. This is what tends to happen. They then recognize a couple of really high-end people in the room, and they're like, oh my God, you got XYZ to come to your event. And I'm like, yes, I've had to respect the privacy of XYZ because they don't want it blasted all over the place, but they've agreed to the video. Here they are. So it depends on where you fall on the spectrum. But I would always say the mistake I made very early on was that I didn't build my personal brand as I was building my business. In fact, because I didn't want to be in front of the camera, I kind of like shied away. But what then happened was that as the business was getting successful, I got invited onto stages. So I had no choice. I had to speak on stages. But thankfully, because I'd been a headhunter, I was already a speaker. While I was doing my headhunting, I was invited to business schools and other places to talk. So that wasn't a problem at all. But I would tell people, as you're building your business, build your personal brand. So if you can get featured in magazines, not just your products, but you as a person, you as an entrepreneur, get those features in. Even if it's your local radio, even if it's your local paper, a feature is a feature.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential, so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.